Welcome to the Conscious Radio Network. Become enlightened, have fun, and tell all your friends and family to share with everyone they know. You can watch us on YouTube and Rumble while following us on Facebook, or find us on X, Instagram, and TikTok. Our podcasts can be found on Libsyn, iHeart, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and more. Most of all, remember to go to our official website at consciousradionetwork.com for past episodes, future shows, and scheduling. We also want to welcome our international audience. Don't stop now. Enjoy the community. Subscribe or follow today.
This is the Conscious Radio Network.
Good day, everybody, wherever you might be on this spaceship we call Earth. Welcome to Conscious Radio Network's podcast series, The Seance Before the Veil. I'm your host, Reverend Dr. Paul Meckes. If this is your first time tuning in, please click subscribe, like, share, comment. And also don't forget to follow us wherever you listen to your podcasts. Today, a journey with spirit, the work of a death doula. She is a compassionate death doula, intuitive, and channeler who writes about sharing death experiences and spiritual consciousness. Her work focuses on fostering connections with oneself and others, trusting personal experiences and teachings from her spirit guides. The A-Team, with a dual master's in art history and theology. She is certified in sound bowl therapy, Reiki, hypnosis, and past life regressions. She also co-teaches seminars on grounding techniques and interpreting signs from spirit. When not working, she enjoys time with her family on the family ranch with her husband and 2 children, surrounded by a variety of animals. Let's welcome to the seance, Gretchen Jones. Did I miss anything?
No, that sounds great. Thank you so much. I'm happy to be
welcome.
here.
You're welcome. A ranch. That sounds cool.
Pretty Texas, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. And I was looking at the website. Are those alpacas? Alpacas or llamas? Llamas. Okay.
Yep. They guard our other animals.
Cool. Really?
They're guard animals. Yep, they're fantastic.
I did not know that. See, I learn something new every day. A death doula.
Mm-hmm.
How? Explain. How did this path for you start out?
So I've always had a connection to spirit my whole life, for as long as I can remember. So the spiritual aspect of connecting to someone before they transition and after has always just been a part of me. When my father transitioned in 2015, it was unexpected from the family for the most part. Yeah. But I had received a premonition about his death 5 months before, so it was less unexpected for me. But it hit the family so hard, and there was so much grief and unfinished business with his death that it really made me want to make sure that that didn't happen to other families. If there was a way to help people find closure, both patients and families, and with their loved ones before they die, I thought I'd like to be a part of that. It wasn't until 2018 that I actually got certified, but I'd already started working with the dying community back in 2015. So I think with our changing healthcare, nurses used to sit bedside with patients, and now there's so much paperwork, documentation, red tape that even nurses have to do that they're not able to sit bedside with their patients for as long as they used to be able to. So there's this need for someone to step in, and that's where death doulas come in.
Yeah. Now, I'm familiar with the term. Some of our audience members may not. So, what exactly does a death doula do?
It varies depending on the skill set of each doula, but for a broad general definition, a death doula is an individual who sits with patients and families and helps the patient holistically transition. That way they're never alone. We can help with some end of life paperwork, but for the most part, it's about initiating conversations, being present and listening and helping to guide both the family and patient to a space of peace.
Yeah. So it is almost a two-way channel that's going on, that you're assisting those that are at the end of life transition and crossover or passover. Because I've heard a lot of stories. This happened with my father. He didn't want. It's like he struggling. It was like he just would. We knew he wanted to go. We knew he wanted to go. And I remember my mom saying something. It's okay. You can go. It was just he needed permission, as though somebody needed permission to. We'll be fine. it's time for you to go. But at the same time, what are some instances where patients would need your assistance, or that you would assist on the livings side?
Very much what your mom did. It's helping people to say it's okay to go. Sometimes even family has a hard time letting go, even though the patient's ready.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm working with a hospice patient, for example, I could have weeks or even months, or in some cases years, with that patient before they actually transition. So we navigate on a case-by-case basis. So I would help them to find closure. I would help them to, and right now I'm working with a lot of people who are in their 80s and 90s. That would be appropriate for nursing homes. So we're coming from that time in history where men need to be strong, where they feel like they're providers and they feel like they need to be the rock for the family and they can't be vulnerable. So I'm working with personalities that I'm trying to soften them up a little bit, trying to encourage them to be a little bit vulnerable, and it's not a weakness. So when I'm working with that age group, I'm coming across that a lot. When I'm working with younger people in their 30s and 40s or even 50s, I'm working around people who are feeling anger.
Yeah.
It's I'm too young to go. And so we then navigate what that looks like and help people to find peace with their terminal diagnosis. So really it's a case-by-case basis.
Yeah. And he's especially the younger crowd. I would assume these are individuals that have been diagnosed with a terminal condition, cancer.
Yes.
Yeah. I could see how that could. I mean, if I was that young, I'd be like, man, I got some more time left. It's like, why? It's like you're mad at the universe. You get that sometimes, like the patient is just like you said, they're just mad at God, mad at the universe in general. Like, why
And
are
they
you
take it out
taking
on their
this?
families. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
But the older generation, like you were saying with your dad, it's like getting permission to go is like saying we're going to be okay. And because they're such providers and they've been taking care of their family, or they feel the need to do that, taking it off their plate is like that permission. Like, hey, we're all going to be okay. Don't worry. We'll take care of mom, or don't worry, the kids are going to be fine, or whatever that is. The older generation almost really like to hear that before they go. The younger ones, not so much. It's really about letting go of that anger and the resentment that they feel that this is unfair. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it can be challenging for especially the parents of the younger
Yes.
young ones. See any challenges with parents on dealing with this and helping the parents with that?
So what I have found to be pretty amazing is whenever someone is starting the process of transitioning, they become aware of spirit or angels or beings of light, so that, when they first get diagnosed, they're angry and they're trying to fix it. And they even try to fight whatever, have a battle with whatever illness they have. And once they surrender to it and they know that, okay, now we're going to start moving, there's this fear of the unknown. That fear kind of sinks in. But when we move into the last weeks before death, they start to sleep a little bit more and they start to become aware of two worlds at once. And when patients when patients experience this and families don't dismiss it and they say, well, tell me what it is you're seeing, it actually brings peace to both the family and the patient. And the patient starts to relieve that fear that starts to lift from them because they're having an experience that most of the people in the room can't see or feel. So, but they're grateful their loved one is having that experience because it's bringing them hope.
Yeah.
So the more that we can allow and be vulnerable and open, that our loved ones are having these spiritual experiences and not dismiss them, no matter how ludicrous they sound, it actually is the catalyst that brings peace. So I have found that having a spiritual understanding or openness at the end of life is actually the first step in having a little bit of peace and starting that grieving process with a little less hurt and pain.
Yeah. Yeah. This is a pretty simple question.
Sure.
I'm sure it gets asked a lot, maybe not in this fashion, because most people that work with you have already accepted it. What do you think happens after we die, or after our body?
Well, I've had shared death experiences with a lot of my patients, and I've had a connection to my team in spirit, whom I call A team. So I sit with my team and I frequently ask these types of questions, these big questions, and I write down and journal what they say. But when I've had these shared death experiences, the patient, when they are transitioning, it's like I get to go partway with them. And almost every time I have experienced I don't know, it's like a welcome home party, a gathering of some sort. And it could be as simple as a picnic or as grand as like a big ballroom type thing. I think it's unique to the patient, to the person going home. And there's always, when I'm there with them, I don't get to join the gathering all the way. It's the journey to the gathering that I get to go on with the patient.
Yeah.
But it's like nothing I've ever experienced. I feel bigger than my body. I feel bigger than the room. I'm huge. I'm expansive. And I have this amazing feeling of freedom and unconditional love. Like it matters zero what was done in that life, what happened in that life. It's just all loving and accepting. And the colors there are so much brighter, so much, I don't know, it's just more intense and different somehow. And things have like a tone, and I can't quite place it, like a hum. It doesn't have a beat, but it's like musical, but not like the music we have here. So it's a completely different experience. And so when we transition, at least the very beginning that I've had to experience, there's this beautiful space that's welcoming and loving and free. And there's a welcome party usually waiting.
Yeah. Wow. It's like you lead them to the door. Like
Yes.
you mentioned the ballroom. It's like you lead them to the door opens up, you get to glance in really quick, be like,
And then I
have
can't
fun.
go. Yeah. My invitation's revoked. They're like,
that's awesome. That ought to be a movie. That's like a movie script.
oh,
Right?
it's how, I don't even know how a producer or creative would make that happen. It's one of the most beautiful experiences. But it's also my belief that everyone can have a shared death experience. So I think that if people could see and experience what I have seen and experienced, it brings so much hope. And you realize that this is not the final goodbye. It's a see you later.
Yeah.
And there's so much freedom in that. And you can reconnect so much easier after a shared death experience.
Yeah.
So it's exciting.
Is this something that can be taught?
I think so. I believe the first step is believing that it can happen and setting the intention to have one. If I were to suggest the next step, and I know a lot of people don't like to hear this, but it's a practice. It's a practice. So sitting quietly and taking time to turn inward. Some people call it meditation, but a lot of people don't like that word because they're like, I can't meditate, but it's just taking a few minutes to sit quietly and just wait for that inner wisdom. I call my inner wisdom A team. It could be your higher self, God, angels, universe, whatever word works for you. It doesn't matter. It's all connected. So I think if you practice a little bit each day and recognize that even something that you think you're making up, right? But puts you in a creative mindset. But we're humans, so we're constantly creating and co-creating the world in which we live in, and that comes from an imagination place. So if you're okay with questioning your imagination and just writing it down anyway and practicing a little bit, I think shared death experiences are available for everyone.
Yeah. We got to step away. Like when I do meditation, or have to go to a reading or a channel or whatnot. Yeah, it is tricky, especially if it's something you don't do all the time. It's tuning an instrument. You got to tune the body, tune the system, and stepping away from reality, unplugging and focusing in on the breath and just listen.
Just listen. Just be.
Yeah. Yeah. What has been the most profound experience doing this work, and how it impacted your life?
Okay. I'm constantly being impacted. Every one of my patients, I learn something, and my teachings from my team in spirit. So I would say the most profound one, it's in my book, and the chapter is called Mr. Virgil. Of course, I've changed his name to protect the privacy of his family. But this is going to sound a little out there. I don't know how out there you get on your podcast on a regular basis.
We go down the rabbit hole sometimes.
Well, this is a little bit down the rabbit hole. And I'm really hoping for more experiences like this because it has opened up a new perspective for me. So I was sitting with Mr. Virgil. He was part of a program called NODA, which stands for No One Dies Alone. It's a hospital-based program throughout the country where they need volunteers to come and sit with people who are dying who don't have family. Either they never had kids, maybe they burned all those bridges, or maybe their family lives out of the state or country and can't come in, but they're alone. And it's in the last 72 hours of their life typically. And they ask for volunteers for 3-hour shifts. Well, all the good shifts had been taken. Nobody wants the midnight to 3 a.m. shift, for example. That's a late one.
Yeah.
But there was a 6 a.m. shift available. And I was just like, guys, it's so late already. I am so tired. I was talking to my team in spirit. I said, but if you want me to, if this is going to be one that I will learn from, wake me up at 4:30 because, I'm not even going to set an alarm. And I put the ball in their court. And at 4:28, I woke up and I was like, all right, guys, I'll sign up for that 6 a.m. shift. And I woke up to the song Colors playing in my head by the Black Pumas. And I was like, oh, okay, well, and I was just like, that's interesting. And I get dressed, I get in the car, I'm driving to the hospital, I turn on the radio, and Colors by the Black Pumas comes on. I mean, it's not like, it's a good song, but it's not like, I don't know. Yeah. It's not like a number one, I don't know. And I had this knowing that my patient, I already knew that my patient was going to be male, he was going to be Black, and he was going to be, struggle to transition a little bit. And I was just like, okay, so I arrive, sure enough, Mr. Virgil meets all that criteria. And I sit down to hold his hand, and I'm going to summarize this. So, because, the story is more detailed in the book, but I sit down to hold his hand, and I was setting the intention or a prayer, whatever you want to call it, to connect with him on a soul level. And when I did, my hospital room transformed into this meadow, this field of flowers and trees, very much like the lyrics in Colors by the Black Pumas.
Wow.
And I was just like, wow, look at us. And I was standing in the field with Mr. Virgil, and we're staring at this forest. Well, I can hear a party going on the other side of the forest, but I knew we were going to have to journey through the forest. But instead of me being the observer, watching him walk through the forest, I'm standing there with him. But then someone emerges out of the forest, and it's me, a third me. A me of light. I'm huge. I'm enormous. I'm bluish white light. And I have never had an experience where I'm in 3 places at once. I am physically sitting at the bedside of Mr. Virgil, who is actively dying. An observer me is standing in the field of flowers with Mr. Virgil on a soul level. And then a me of light is emerging from the forest to walk Mr. Virgil to the party. 3 me's. And I know that sounds crazy. It was so incredibly transformative. As we start to move and walk through the forest together, the me, observer me, stays back in the meadow of flowers, but the me of light is here walking with Mr. Virgil. And I explain some pretty profound stuff to him that I don't even know where it came from the me of light. And it was one of them. He asked a question. He asked, what about my nephew and my uncle? And all of a sudden, the me of light shows like a film projection or something of the possibilities and potentials for both of those people. And right when that starts, my consciousness flew back to the me in the observing in the field of flowers. I wasn't allowed to witness what was being shown about the other two people he asked about, but the me of light was still showing it to him, but I shot back to a different observer me.
Yeah.
Ultimately, the me of light walks him all the way through to the party. And when he transitions, he was nervous about it. He was like apprehensive a little bit. But that was probably one of the most transformative experiences for me, because I became aware of me in three fragmented places. We were all connected. We were all one. We were all aware of each other, but we were all somehow separate identities or personalities. So that was probably one of my most transformative experiences.
Yeah. Wow. That's very quantum-esque.
It is. It actually
Yeah.
is. Yes. Yes. I hope to have more like that.
Yeah.
I
Wow.
will.
Huh. Now, in your childhood, you said you've had a lot of profound spiritual experiences and stuff. What one really stands out the most for you?
So when I was about 12 or 13 years old, I've always been aware of spirit. In fact, when I would have challenges or be overwhelmed as a kid, I would go into a bathroom and sit in an empty bathtub. No one would bother you in the bathroom. That was my only place as a kid to find peace, right? So I would sit in an empty bathtub and just kind of breathe and listen to the silence. And sometimes a voice would find me there and give me a little bit of guidance or comfort. Nobody in my family practiced meditation. They probably didn't. I mean, that word, I never even heard of the word. They probably didn't even know what that was. If it never brought up. But I realize now that's sort of what I was doing, at 4 and 5 years old, escaping to an empty bathtub to just focus on my breath and be in the silence, just to remove myself from whatever I was feeling overwhelmed about. And when I was 12 or 13, that I saw a man kind of light, blue and white light also. And he was standing at the foot of my bed, and he was bald. And so I remembered that. And I remember he smiled and he had his arms crossed across his chest. And without saying anything, he said, "Everything's going to be all right." And I was like, oh, okay. I mean, the whole room glowed because of him. I was like, oh, okay. I felt completely safe. I was not startled that there was a man in my room. I believed him. I felt like he was an old friend. I trusted him. And I rolled over and went to sleep. The next morning, I told my parents, and they said, they thought initially that because I said, there's a bald man in my room. They thought maybe someone had come in through the window initially. And when they realized I was talking about a man of light, my dad said, "I believe you believe that's what you saw." And I was disheartened because it was such a transformative experience for me. It didn't make me question my own experience. It made me question if I could trust the wisdom of my parents.
Yeah.
So at 12 or 13, I recognized that maybe they didn't have all the answers and that they wouldn't believe my experiences. So I kept it to myself, but I was always kind of like, do they even know what they're talking about on other things? So I continued my own journey with spirit, but I didn't incorporate my family very much because it wasn't an accepted idea.
Yeah. Parents parents tend to do that. I've never, a lot of my experiences, I never even reached out to my parents to say, I saw this or I saw that or whatnot. And until later in life, my mom started watching, spooky movies and ghost movies and stuff like that. And I just, all right, I'll watch it with you. But never really talked about ghosts and spirits and stuff. Even still today, Mom, we'll talk about a ghost in the gym. She just started a gym, and the gym guy goes, "Hey, did anybody talk to you about the ghost in the gym?" And she goes, "What?" She saw some videos. Stuff moves when the place is closed. So I just go, "Yep, Mom. Ghosts
So when
exist."
you were little, why didn't you express that?
I don't know. I was the only child. Always been the only child, and I'd say I thought it was normal. I just never really decided to express it, because it's like I knew my parents knew that spirits existed, ghosts existed, and I just decided to keep those experiences to myself. Like, I don't know, it just seemed like it would have more meaning if I kept it, and now I'll talk about it now.
Sure. How interesting.
Yeah. And but yeah, those are stories for Halloween. The true ghost stories.
Yeah.
So let's I'm gonna bring up your book, because you did mention the book, Healing Whispers from Spirit Guides. Was this something that you just recently finished, or how long's the book been out? Where can I find it?
Book's been out only a month.
Really?
Yep. About 2.5 years ago, closer to 3 years now, I was coming out of sleep and I was waking up and I heard a voice say, I knew it was a specific guy in my team. He said, "You're going to write a book."
Mhm.
And I'll be honest, I still don't, but it's there. There it is. But I didn't feel qualified to write a book. I didn't feel that I had anything interesting to share. I hadn't done anything, phenomenal in any way or exceptional in my opinion.
Yeah.
But they said I would write a book and that it would take about 2.5 years to complete. It did. And I said, "Well, what am I supposed to write about?" And they said, "Write what you know." Well, what does that mean? I know a little bit about a lot of things, but I didn't feel like I was an expert in any one area. But the most transformative experience I was having was at the bedside of my patients and clients. And I'd been journaling this for years. So I had all these journals of my thoughts and experiences that have happened that day and little stories. And I just kind of put them all together. So I have chapters on really amazing spiritual experience at the bedside of patients and clients and even some family in there. And it's preceded by a teaching chapter, a chapter of something that I've learned through these, through spiritual experiences and my team in spirit. So I have this teaching chapter and then a relevant patient story. And I end each chapter with a channel from my team in spirit.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
cool.
It's been, it's done. It's done. So it wasn't like, I'm like, well, okay, this should be flowing out of me of spirits that I'm going to be writing it, but it wasn't. It was a journey. So, but there it is. And I'm happy it's out and I'm proud of it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. And to share this with you, some of that spirit always gives us messages. It's just some people just refuse to listen.
I know.
Pretty much a lot of the stuff that I do, a lot of decisions I make on a daily basis are this podcast, for instance. This podcast was an idea that spirit gave me. I woke up one morning and I just heard this voice. You need to do a radio show.
Wow.
What are you talking about? Like a radio show. Okay, whatever. And this was I was still a student medium at the time, and doing a lot of the work, doing a lot of channeling, a lot of messages and stuff like that, and I started a paranormal investigation team, and then just it came, and literally like it almost felt like it was overnight.
Isn't that something?
A friend of mine with the church at the time, the spiritualist church I was at, interestingly enough, he was a radio DJ, worked in radio, and knew the ropes of how to set one up. I'm like, dude, I need your help. Spirit told me I need to start an internet radio show. And he goes, dude, I can help you. So like within a couple weeks, I posted it on social media, boom, 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 and then it all fell into place. Now with
Wow,
that,
that's amazing.
right? And even since then, this is like in 2014, so 10 years ago.
That's how long
And
you've been doing this?
yeah,
That's a long time.
That's when I started Conscious Radio Network originally, and
Wow.
then the whole podcasting thing was about going on 3 years. This type of format.
Sure.
Now, with that being said, ever since then, a lot of decisions, a lot of thoughts, a lot of major decisions in my life that I decided to do, like, hey, I got to go do this, or I needed to do that. It all comes from spirit. I hear it, and then I just act on it, and I'll know how severe it is because they don't just suggest, they just tell you. You
Yep.
better do this or else. Or else what? You don't want to know. And now with that experience, with those types of experiences, how important do you think it is that people should be getting more connected into the spiritual, getting, start listening to these voices, how to differentiate, maybe some of your experiences within this, or other people's experiences that you've heard about, and your thoughts of this importance of our relationship to the spirit world.
I can't imagine my life without spirit, without being connected to something greater than myself in some way. Um, I, I mean, it's such a huge part of who I am, really, and it makes living in life easier. It gives you hope. It gives you, you, you're okay when these challenges happen. You're like, okay, this is not easy. I don't like being here. But then you feel like everything's going to be okay. It's always okay. And when you can get out of your own headspace is maybe one of the most important things we can do.
Yeah.
And it's just, there's so many people who don't. And I just want to, shake them sometimes and say, just practice 5-10 minutes a day. You'll wonder how you ever got this far without them, without being consciously aware of them. Obviously, they're always helping regardless. But it's like the number one thing. It has to be done for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can imagine the amount of people that look at this as hocus pocus, taboo. Oh no, that doesn't exist. But they're doing it and they don't realize it.
I think so. My husband's not very spiritual at all. And he kind of rolls his eyes at, whatever it is that I'm doing. But he listens, but I have now, it used to bother me a little bit, and now it doesn't, because he's a photographer, and I notice that he seems to transcend himself when he's taking pictures of sunsets.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's his connection to the divine, to something greater than himself, is through the lens of a camera and taking a moment to take it in and trying to get the best shot on a creative aspect. So I guess we can all connect in some way. I will say that my team in spirit the last 20 years has been pushing compassion, compassion, compassion. Like, this has been a really big part of my learning experience. But they shifted when the book started to be written, and they're now letting go of compassion. Not that it's less important in any way, but they're really pushing connection.
Yeah.
Connection to spirit, connection to other human beings, connection to our planet, connection. And teaching other people to connect in some way has become such an apparent lesson that is part of my purpose now. So we're moving from compassion into connection. So connection is absolutely one of the most important things that we can do.
Yeah. And that's profound too, being able to, and like in every episode I ask is like, okay, what would be a takeaway? That's definitely important, and that's definitely a takeaway and I've felt this as well, is we have to we need to reconnect as a human being to other human beings. And it seems like that has been fading over the last several years. Something really odd has happened. I don't know, did it slowly happen, or did this happen during the whole virus thing? It just seemed like it was a rush of a change, a paradigm shift, that we're losing our humanity, and it maybe was a way for us to be reconnected to spirit, because we're all locked up, so to speak, and giving us that opportunity to reconnect. And before we close the show, is what is one of the biggest takeaways that you feel within your work as a death doula, and with the spirit work that you do, that you'd like to offer our audience?
I think connection's probably it. I think if I can encourage everyone to practice, to sit down, to find that silence within yourself, and to be open to every single experience that comes within that silence and not dismiss it, it can be life-changing. And to write it down.
Oh, yeah.
because you will forget. You think you're going to remember it and you won't. And it's so helpful to be able to look back after a year and say, wow, these were the messages I was getting a year ago. And look how much discernment I have now between the information I was receiving a year ago versus the information I'm able to interpret now. It's huge. And it's not like you have to sit and do this for an hour, although I love to sit and do it for an hour now. But initially, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, work up to that. You'll want to once you get
Yeah.
started. And also, if I could just say one thing about the dying community. Hospice is not for the last minute. It's an invaluable resource and tool. Even if you don't have insurance, most hospices are charitable, and you have all the availability to medicines and nurses. And so don't wait till that final week.
Yeah.
Get on there 6 months before. It's just so valuable to have people coming in and helping through that process. And you have access to doctors and nurses and volunteers and medication. It's not giving up to go on hospice. It's being aware of your situation and taking advantage of every resource and tool that you have at your disposal. So practice, practice, practice with turning inward, even if you don't want to call it meditation, which can be a triggering word. And also, just on the side note, utilize the resources and tools within your community to help with people who are processing death.
Yeah, absolutely. Something Spirit told me to ask you something just now there's something about dreams. They're telling me to ask you something about dreams.
Oh, well, I
There's
get a
something you
lot
need
of
to share about dreams.
I get a lot of spirit connections through dreams. And I'm sure a lot of people do, and I hope they don't dismiss them off. Oh, I just had this dream. But if you recognize the amount of, well, for example, I had a dream, okay, about what my purpose was right now. And this is pretty interesting. I was on, this is going to sound a little out there, but you said that you guys are open to that. I was on a ship, like a Pleiadian ship. Okay, so I am very new to understanding alien type stuff, even though I've been told there's Arcturians on my team of spirit guides. So I just was always like, I don't want to hear it. That's alien stuff. It doesn't really matter. But now it's becoming like, so my dream, I'm on a Pleiadian ship and I'm dressed like a waiter and I'm standing around a bunch of tables and I'm holding a tray. And they were saying over and over again, I'm looking at a team, but I'm standing with the team watching myself. So I don't even know what these people look like.
Yeah.
I wish I could. And they were saying, your purpose is right now. Your purpose is to serve and to clear, to serve and to clear, just like a waiter would be doing. So I think right now, when I go in, my part of my service to this planet right now is to go in to assist people through their fear and to clear away any fear and uncertainty they have around death, around spirit, around communicating. If their religion expresses that they can't communicate, I find that a lot at end of life with deceased beings or light beings that they're seeing, just to kind of clear all that away and let them know it's okay. And that's my way of being of service right now. So that was an interesting dream that I had that kind of announced my purpose. But a lot of my information about prophetic visions about someone's death and ballparking, that all come through dreams. And so if people did more dream work,
Yeah.
and we're open to that, that's just another phenomenal way to connect.
And take note. If there's a dream that you remember, please write it down. Write as much detail as you think down. That way you can relay that and maybe work on it later.
Absolutely.
And maybe get back into that dream last night or something.
That would be nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Now with the serving and clearing aspect, another quantum observation happened is, as I look at it, I can see that this could also present a profound impact on the individual that is passing when it comes to the energetic reincarnation from one body to the next, or from one lifetime to the next, because now you're clearing something, you're assisting them, because it could possibly affect their next life in some form or fashion with a phobia or something. Or what do you feel about that?
I'd never thought of it that way.
There you go.
Although my team in spirit always sort of tells me, because I got certified in past life regressions, and they're like, well, they're always like correcting my person at the end, or through me. I didn't correct my teacher, but they would say, well, you're one life having many experiences.
Yeah.
And that sometimes our experiences are overlapping each other. So I don't know how the next life would look if time isn't technically linear. But we choose to focus in a linear time frame. So you're right that technically, and in the next linear experience, could be an opportunity to clear a fear, to remove a phobia or some sort of block. I hadn't considered that before.
Yeah, because everything happens for a reason. I always feel that. And with you being in the picture, with you being called in, and it was a destiny for them, for you to show up for that one particular person, for the last individual that you were telling us about. What was his name?
Mr. Virgil.
Mr. Virgil. Maybe one of his angels, maybe one of his spirit guides or ancestors is like, because they're on, the ultra dimensional area, so they can see, what the future is, what the whole thing. They're like, oh man, well, we don't want them to go through this portion or something within a next life or some other parallel reality. And what you did could have cleared something and could have helped in clearing some stuck energy. And maybe not necessarily in the next life, but maybe something in a parallel life of another experience that he's having. And yeah, it's getting weird, very quantum. Told you it's a rabbit hole.
You can just keep going. That's right.
Yeah. So before we go, how can people find you?
My website is www.helengretchenjones.com. And my book is on barnesandnoble.com, amazon.com. I have it. Yep. I have a Kindle form, paperback, and Audible. So you can also listen to it. That's how I like to read, actually, is running errands, listening to audiobooks.
Audiobooks are awesome. Especially if you got to drive a lot.
Yep. So I put one out in audio form. I narrated it. So yeah.
Cool. Right on. Gretchen, blessings, my friend. You are a gift to our universe.
Thank you.
The immediate
You are
universe.
too.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And welcome back anytime. Let me know. Got another book coming out. Spirit goes, yep, we got another one. Got a sequel coming.
There will be another one coming out. I'm just going to take some time to let this one unfold for a little while.
Cool. Awesome. Namaste, my friend.
Thank you. Namaste.
Blessings. Thank you, everybody, for watching Conscious Radio Network's The Seance. And until next time, we will see you next time.